going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. This is our top 10 hottest selling comics of the week, our weekly video series brought to you by PopCultureZone.com. Before we get into this week's top 10 books, don't forget to check out PopCultureZone.com's. Their links are below. Check them out if you're interested in getting your hands on some awesome exclusive and incentive variants at affordable costs, CGC slabs, and of course all different kinds of pop culture items, including toys and statues. And if you're buying raw books, they ship at a flat rate fee of only $4.99. Pop Culture Zone is also on eBay, where they still hold a 100% customer feedback rating with over 8,000 ratings this year alone. Those links are below. Check them out and make sure you follow them on eBay as well.
We do this thing each and every week. It's the top 10 look back, props or flops, where we look at the top 10 hottest comics of the previous week, which was Monday. Monday, Cover Price releases their top 10 hottest comics of the week. We give it a few days to marinate, and then Chris takes a look at 3 books on that list to see if they're props or flops, if they've retained that heat or if they're just cold. So we're just going to get into it by getting into the top 10 hottest comics. First, here we go. We got at number 10, Catwoman, number 43, this is going to be a Suzo Micah 1 in 25. At number 9, the Sensational She-Hulk, number 1, that beautiful John Byrne cover. Number 8, Thor, God of Thunder, number 2. At number 7, Thor, God of Thunder, number 1, the first mention of gore. Number 6, the Savage She-Hulk, number 1, first appearance of She-Hulk. Number 5, we have Speed Racer, number 1, first comic book adaptation. And number 4, we have Thor, number 1. Number 3, we have Infinite Crisis, number 5, the Jamie Reyes becomes the Blue Beetle. At number 2, we have Countdown presents The Search for Ray Palmer, Superwoman / Batwoman, first appearance of Plastic Woman. And at number 1, we got Dai Kamikaze, number 1, preview of Speed Racer, number 1. This is an interesting list, Chris. A lot of books from different publishers, which this is what we like to see. You and I, we talk about this. Still dominated by Marvel. What do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, it's 5. 50% Marvel, which is lower than most weeks, actually. So, Chris, initial thoughts of the top 10 list first.
Yeah, man, I agree. It's more of a diverse list. We've been having Marvel, like, I think for a good 2 months now. It's been Marvel with maybe like one DC book, one independent book here and there. So happy to see a mix of things. So that means that my top 3 that we're going to talk about today are different, because I don't have one Marvel book picked. So I'm happy about that. But let's get into it.
That's a first. We have to say that is a first. Let's just get into it.
Number 3. My number 3 book that we're going to discuss today. Infinite Crisis, number 5. This is where Jaime Reyes becomes Blue Beetle. So technically the first appearance of Jaime Reyes as Blue Beetle. This we got the first look at the live action costume, and Jeff, I think it looks absolutely amazing.
It looks awesome. Awesome.
So let's look at these numbers. As always, we look at the numbers from when this book hit the top 10 1 week ago, and it was trending upward 168% in sales. When it hit the top 10, we saw a $400 9.8 high. This week, we saw a $380 9.8 high. 5% decrease right there. But again, as I always say, don't just focus on highs. When you think about the few that were being sold, a $20 difference isn't that much difference at all, just depending on the people bidding on it in that point of time. Last week's average raw when it hit the top 10 was sitting at 35. This week's average raw increased a bit to an average of 45. That's a 29% increase in value, but only 3 units sold this week. So very interesting, because there was a lot of units that sold last week when it hit the top 10. Obviously, that's why it is here. Only 3 units. What do I think of this book?
This is gonna be tough, man. This is gonna be tough for me too.
Yeah. So I did a I think it was a top books to invest in for under $25, something like that, probably a year and a half ago. And I said, I think I had Infinite Crisis 3, which is the first appearance of Jaime Reyes. But it was either 3 or 5. I was talking about, like if DCEU does a Blue Beetle, it's going to be Jaime Reyes. That was my thoughts on it. And then sure enough, that's the way that they went. I'm again optimistic about this film as much as I can be, though. And I'm going to give this book props or flops, but my decision is not going to be really even based so much on the success of this.
You're going to run over my argument. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So look, I am going to give this book, I'm going to give this book props. And I want to, notate or, just put it out there that I'm not saying buy or don't buy books when I say props or flops, but I also want it to be clear that I would never touch a 9.8 of this book in $400, for $300, for $200 even. I would not. But when you put this in perspective as a modern book, if you could find this book for $35 to $45 in a nice higher grade, I think it's worth the investment long term. Now, does that mean that this book isn't necessarily risky and volatile right now? It is, because we don't know. We know DCEU's track record and Warner Brothers' track record. No, it's not CW, NORAD. It is an HBO Max film.
Actually, I do believe they changed that to having a wide release.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep.
Theatrical release.
Yep. You're right. We covered that. We covered that. They'll probably do a hybrid then, you think? Probably still.
Yes.
Some type of, yeah. So yeah. No, not CW here. It would be a whole different conversation. But I think they could do a good job with this movie. I'm not going to put a lot of my eggs in that basket, though. I just think when we get back to the root of these characters in the comic books, Jaime Reyes' Blue Beetle, I almost think, and I haven't read too much Blue Beetle, but Jaime Reyes breathed life into the Blue Beetle character. And I think that means something. So again, I don't think you're taking too much of a risk spending $35 to $45 on this book and seeing what it might do after the film, seeing what it might do in 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, especially if you love the character and you're into this character. So yeah, I'm going to give it props.
Okay. And guys, just to remind y'all, we want to hear if it's props or flops for you as well. We love seeing those comments from you guys. We love seeing your thoughts. Now, I am going to, okay, Chris, I thought you were going down the same road that I'm going down, and you didn't. You went a different road. I believe in this character. I like this character. I think the suit looks incredible. Amazing. From iPhone or from cell phone pictures. Yeah. When that thing gets all the post-production work on it, it's going to look awesome. He looks great. That being said, if we're talking props or flops on this specific book, not because of the character, not because of what potential. I mean, we don't know what the quality of the film is going to be. Let's be honest. Because again, I'm still skeptical when it comes to DCEU. But I have to give it flops, and here's why. I don't like DC does not retain value. The books do not retain value. Go ahead, Chris. Go.
Specifically to movie Spec, though. Is that that's with the question?
Yes, correct. Yep.
So I ask you this though: are we always looking at the future value of books based solely on live action Spec?
Yes, because what was this book doing 4 years ago?
But that, to me, again, is we have to look at intrinsic value of the character on a broader spectrum than just live action. So that's why I am giving it props, still in that raw range that it's at. But you got a solid argument. So I'm giving it props based on the intrinsic value. You're giving it flops because you can't trust the spec value in it. But I would still ask, so do you think though, so you're still thinking that there's no real intrinsic value if the live action stuff doesn't do well?
Yeah, let me rephrase. I believe in the character, but I think the spec value when it comes to the films, even if they're successful and good, weighs it down after the buzz is gone, weighs it down. And that price, if you pay $35 for it now, a year after that movie is released, I think it'll be $35, probably less. That's why I'm giving it flops. That's my thought. I don't have data to back this up, but it's a general following of these books after the films come out. The excitement is not retained with DC films. DC
absolutely.
So that's
absolutely.
Like the Peacemaker show is a good example of that as well. So Vigilante is, I don't know. Nobody's talking about Vigilante, even though that character was awesome. Even though Peacemaker show was amazing, and there's going to be season 2, there's a huge dip. Maybe it'll come back up. I don't know. I don't want to waste too much time on this specific book, though. That's my feeling. You give it props. I give it flops. Guys, continue to let us know what you think, because Chris has another book coming up. What would that be, Chris?
All right, guys. I said I'm staying away from Marvel in my 3 picks. So number 2, some more DC. This is Countdown Presents The Search for Ray Palmer, Superwoman, Batwoman #1. Let's look at these numbers. So, first off, let's talk about what this is. This is the first appearance of Plastic Woman. This book got hot because there's an announcement of a animated property. Plastic Woman's going to show up voiced by, what's her name? Her name's Leslie. She's the woman, she's from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, she's awesome. Hold on. Leslie.
Yep.
Leslie Jones.
Leslie Jones. Yes. So that's why this book got hot. Now let's look at it. 170% upward trend in sales when it hit the 10 last week, with a high 9.8 of $156. It was the only sale. Even looking back weeks prior, there was nothing there, and there was no other sale this week. Well, why? There's only 4 copies of this on the census. There's only 2 9.8s that exist. And I think there's like one 9.6 and one 9.4, something like that. 4 books of this book. This is a 15-year-old book, and only 4 exist in graded form. Only 4 people have sent it in. Last week's average raw, when it hit the top 10, $34. This week's average raw, there was no raw sales. If you look on eBay right now, there's one that has a couple bids on it. Everything else is buy it now, and nobody's buying them. Folks, this was a $2 book before the animated show announcement last week. Jeff, do you know what I'm going to give this book?
I have an idea, yeah. I think we're going to be on the same page. People, we want to hear your thoughts, though, too.
Yep. Yes, we do.
We're going to be on the same page. Go.
I absolutely need to. This Adam Hughes cover, freaking beautiful cover. I have to give this book flops. Guys, look, I just did a live stream with Bronze Age Nerd on my channel on Friday. We talked a little bit about this. I'm at a point where I'm being a broken record, and I'm tired of being a broken record. I have always been the optimist, and I was being very optimistic with the Blue Beetle, the Infinite Crisis book. So I still want to be an optimist at times, but I just can't always, because it's starting to get tiresome doing this every week, looking at the market every week and seeing the same crap happen. And like you were just saying about DC, we're seeing it with Marvel, even with the success of the MCU. Marvel's spec is at an all-time FOMO high, and it just drops back down. Me and Bronze covered the percentages. All Marvel stuff, all MCU stuff, Timekeepers, Illuminati, those books have dropped anywhere from like 60 to 70% after the trailer or the announcement or so forth, right? This book, nobody cared about this book. And I always say this too. Just because somebody doesn't care about a first appearance or a character or a certain book in the past doesn't mean that that can't change. More people are caring about origins. More people are caring about first team ups or first meetings. But you gotta still put it into perspective, folks. This is an animated voice casting for an animated series. It's not going to do nothing for this book long term. Anybody who paid $30, $40, $50 for this book over that last week, I'm sorry. I'm not Ray Palmering. I'm face palmering. I don't know what we're thinking here, but we're almost a half year. We're almost halfway done with this year. And I vowed that it's going to be the year of the educated collectors. And I hope I'm doing my part. I hope we're doing our part, Jeff. Folks, please don't spend $156 on a freaking dollar bin book just because it's in a piece of plastic. And please don't spend $30 to $40 on this book just because you think that you're missing out because there's been a voice actor casting for an animated show that's going to do nothing to the value of this book long term.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to my example of Peacemaker. He was an outlying character before Suicide Squad, before James Gunn took over Suicide Squad. Had a very successful series. And again, those characters involved with Peacemaker, even Peacemaker himself, although the Charlton original books are doing very well. I mean, those are basically, I think, Golden Age. But this is those books are dipping majorly, and this book here, an outlying character that has way less history than a Peacemaker or Vigilante, in an animated series. Everybody, hold your horses, because this is a flop. This is an absolute flop. I can't say it enough. No doubt in my mind. I'm usually optimistic with props or flops here. That's a flops. Chris, we're moving on to your third pick from this list.
All right, guys. Here we go. Not DC, not Marvel. Interesting enough, Jeff, my top three picks were the top three books.
Wow.
2, 3, 1, count them down. The number one book on the top 10 this week is my number one pick. Die Kamikaze, number one. All right, folks. This book right here. Now, if you guys didn't see, Speed Racer, number one, was on the top 10 this week. And that's because we got an announcement of a new Speed Racer series coming. I'm assuming that's going to be animated. But guess what made number one? The preview of Speed Racer number one. I want you all to put something in perspective before I look at the numbers and we talk about this book. Speed Racer was around in manga and like magazines before the comic book, before Speed Racer number one. Speed Racer number one was basically like the first comic book form of publication for the character. And it was basically reprinting and republishing the stories from the manga. This book saw a 380% upward trend in sales when it hit the top 10 last week. There was no graded sales at all. There was no graded sales at all this week. There are 0 copies on the census. There are 0 copies on the census. Last week's high raw, when it hit the top 10, $30. There was a few that sold for $30. This week's average raw, there were no sales this week. This was another $2 book before this announcement. Oh boy. Broken record, broken record, broken record.
Are we going for a hat trick here? No, you got props for the first one.
Yep. Folks, look. Here I am playing devil's advocate. A preview appearance will never be a first appearance in comic books. It never will be. Because it just isn't. It could be a first appearance in a preview. You have to add proper context, right? The Malibu Sun, first appearance of Spawn in preview. It's not a first appearance of Spawn in a comic book. It's not, and it never will be. If you want to value a preview book because you simply see a character in that book before you actually see them in true comic book form for the first time, that's fine. I'm not hating on you for that. If you find value in that and you want to put a price tag on that, that's fine. Absolutely okay. Kudos. What muddies this book up, though, is that this isn't even a standard first appearance. The comic book, that is. Speed Racer #1. But it's just a previews mag for a Speed Racer comic that never even really had any huge value in the first place. And nobody cared about this book. Nobody before last week went into their LCSs saying, "Excuse me, Mr. LCS owner, do you have that Die Kamikaze #1? I absolutely need that first appearance or first preview of Speed Racer #1 so I can spend money to go send it to CGC and CBCS and EGS or whoever so I can hope to get that 9.8. Nobody went to the back issue saying, I need this book, I need this book, I need this book. If you look over the last 4 years, I can close to count how many copies of this book sold raw for $2, $1.79. I can count close to them on my fingers. How many copies sold over the last 2-3 years? On my fingers, on my hands. If you paid $30 for this book, oh my gosh. I don't know what to say, folks. Again, I'm being a broken record, Jeff, and look, Speed Racer's great. Cool. There's a new show coming out. We have to stop acting on emotions. And this is what I talked about on Friday in my live stream. I understand that we want to watch these movies and it binds us to these characters more. It excites us even more about these characters to see them in live action or even animated, whatever. And when we get excited about these characters because of live action or animated, more often than not, it drives us to the characters' books. That's what started live action spec FOMO in the first place, or specking in the first place. I shouldn't say FOMO necessarily. When I was getting back into comics as an adult and I watched the Sam Raimi films, as much as I have certain issues with those films, still love them, I went back and started buying more. I was like, oh man, when I saw the third one come out and I knew Black Spidey was coming, I couldn't find my childhood ASM 252. I went out and bought another one. So it's real. And it was because of my love for that character in the black suit. Not because, oh my God, it's going to be in a movie. I need to buy it now, FOMO out for a quick flip, get rich scheme. No longer, though, do I truly believe and can sit here and say that we are in the days of a live action spec announcement or an animated spec announcement is simply driving people to these books because of some type of love for the characters. It's just not happening. It's not that anymore. This is purely flippers trying to get their hands on it. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. And people that have the FOMO mentality and are in fear of missing something because they need to have it. They need to have it now. And they think they're gonna get rich off it or make some money off of it or whatever the case might be. Maybe they think it's a status thing because if they get it before it's too late, then they can show it off and it validates them as a comic collector. I don't know. But these books are not even valid key books on the market. And they are increasing way too fast and dropping down way too fast and way too low, too quick. Something's got to give. I'm tired of being a broken record at this point.
Chris, you didn't give props or flops.
Wow.
I just want to mention that. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody and their mothers know what you're going to say, but let's just make it official, please.
Huge whammy of a flop.
Boom. It's official, everybody. Chris thinks this book is a flop. Let me tell you something, guys. I did a little bit of research. Speed Racer first came out in 1966. This book came out in 1987. I find it interesting, even though a preview, that's Speed Racer's first comic book appearance. Then, of course, we know that, his first appearance is in his first full is in this book, right? His Speed Racer right there, the top right corner. I find that very interesting. And if you're a Speed Racer collector, those things are important. But I'm going to give this book a flop as well. No doubt about that. I don't think the J.J. Abrams-led production on Apple TV, the new Speed Racer cartoon, is really going to move the needle on any of these Speed Racer books. So I have to agree with you, Chris. That is a flop. And we got a lot of good comments there. A lot of people agreeing on that point. But a lot of people saying Amazing Spider-Man is an awesome book. That's good FOMO, though. Can't have enough Amazing Spider-Man 252s. Yeah. Timeout. I have an update before we officially end Top 10 Look Back. Dan De La Torre is in the soup aisle while listening to the Cannon Show. Are you on speaker, Dan, or are you on some sort of Bluetooth device in your ears? And if you are on speaker, please tell somebody at the checkout line that we're thinking of them and we hope you're polite.
Anyway, tell them to subscribe to the channel.
And subscribe to the channel. Put them on the phone, too. Maybe we'll get you on here ASAP.